So, good evening to all of you. You can see the session number 4 is on research design. Normally, we divide the research design in three categories: exploratory, descriptive, and causal. So, we will discuss in detail what are these research designs. Now, before going to start the session, let me tell about the importance of the topic. Although the research design is not very important from research paper point of view, but from thesis point of view, it is must. So it is almost mandatory for every research scholar to describe the research design in the chapter number 3, that is called research methodology. And you may face the questions like, what is your research design? And from my experience, I know that the more than 90% of the scholars in India, they don't have clarity on the research design. So they have just an idea, but not the crystal clear clarity on this. So, so this is the overall design we have, and we divide the research design in 4 categories. So, first of all, we divide the research design in 2 categories: exploratory and conclusive. So, first is exploratory research design, and the second category is conclusive research design. Basic difference is that in exploratory research design, we are not going to get any conclusion. Rather, we are going to clear the problem. So the objective of exploratory research design to clear the problem. However, conclusive research design, the focus is on arriving at a conclusion. Now there are two type of ways to arrive at a conclusion. Number one is, if you are planning to conduct a survey to arrive at a conclusion, then this is called descriptive research design. And if you are planning to conduct an experiment to arrive at a solution, this is called causal research design. Then descriptive research design further divided into 2 categories: the questionnaire data and other secondary data. Suppose you are conducting a survey through questionnaire, then you are getting the cross-sectional design. Or if you are getting a time series data or any panel data, then it is a longitudinal design. So this is the basic description or division of the research design. And on the basis of this diagram, I divide the research design in 4 categories: exploratory, descriptive, causal, and qualitative. The focus for today is to design exploratory and descriptive, and causal in the is planned to be discussed in the next session. So first of all, I will explain you the basic of all. Now, what is the basic difference between the exploratory and causal or descriptive? So if we go to the first slide, then I am asking just what is the difference between exploratory and conclusive research design. So this is exploratory and this is conclusive. So in exploratory research design, the problem is ambiguous and problem is certain. So uncertainty, whether the problem is certain or not certain, influences the type of research. So in causal design, the problem is already clear. In exploratory, the problem is not clear. Now I am going to give you an example to explain all the three type of research design. All of you have seen some sort of web series or movies which are based on a murder mystery. बहुत सारी मूवीज आपने देखी होंगी जिसमें किसी का मर्डर हो जाता है, somebody who got murdered, and the whole movie is showing you the way the investigator arrive at a solution. So let's consider a case, hypothetical case of that. Now the when the movie starts, the some background information come and one of the person is murdered, right? Now at this point of time, the information goes to the investigator. The investigator may be a police officer, CBI officer, any officer. Now suppose you are at that position. You came to know that somebody was murdered. You are at home and you came to know that the murder is taking place somewhere. So at this time, you are not aware about anything, that who was killed, who was the killer, what is the time, why. There are so many questions which comes in your mind. But one thing is still clear, that you are not aware of anything. So now the question is that at this point of time, what is your responsibility? What are the different activities you are assumed to perform? बिल्कुल initial stage पे, in the initial stage, in the zero stage, you just came to know that somebody got murdered. Now, what type of activities you are going to do? The answer is, first of all, you want to collect information as much as possible from different sources. आप क्या करेंगे? So at this time, you talk to different people, collect their statement, and you invite forensic people, you invite different people, you invite some medical people. So your objective is to collect as much as information as possible, and you always keep a diary with you, and whatever information comes, you note down that information in your diary. So the information come from the victims, the family member of the person, or the person who give you the information. So information is coming from different sources, and your job is to collect the information as much as possible. So after certain days, or 2 days, 3 days, when you collected information, each and every information, minute to minute information from different sources, now the problem is clear. You know that the Mr. X was murdered. The time is this, the location is that, and whosoever present in that location you already know, and you try to get information about the person, each and everything, right? So now, because every information is with you, so the problem is clear. So up to the moment the problem is clear, before that, all activities done by you comes in exploratory research design. So with this example, now we know that. So what is exploratory research design? Exploratory research design can be defined as the performance of the activities for collecting the maximum information from different sources so that the problem will be fully clear. This is called exploratory research design. Now, once problem is clear, now your next stage start. What is the next stage? Now the next stage is that developing the hypothesis. Now you can develop the hypothesis like the reason behind murder is enemy, some enemy murdered this. Or second hypothesis, there could be any family problem behind the murder. There could be any financial problem behind the murder. Or there are so many hypotheses. So at this stage, you are so whatever hypothesis comes in your mind, you frame those hypotheses and want to test these hypotheses whether the hypotheses are true or not true. Suppose you made the hypothesis that some enemy murdered this. So now your focus is to collect the data of all the enemies, possible enemies, reason whether the enemies murder that person or not. So your whole focus is to test the hypothesis, and you collect the data, you collect the interview, you collect the some other data set, other data to prove that whether the hypothesis is true or false. So this process of hypothesis testing by conducting a survey and arrive at a conclusion, this is called descriptive research design. So what is descriptive research design? Descriptive research design starts with clearly defined problem, clearly framed hypothesis. Now your job is to collect the evidence, collect the data to test the hypothesis and arrive at a conclusion. So this portion is known as descriptive research design. Now the third stage is that suppose you want to conduct some experiment. You want to prove the hypothesis by experimentation. Like for example, you know that in murder mystery, there is a DNA match, blood sample match, finger match. No. So these are you are conducting as test experiments. Whether with the help of the experiments you want to prove the hypothesis. So when you want to prove the hypothesis not by survey but from the experiment, this is called causal research design. So causal research design can be defined as the process of testing the hypothesis with the help of experiment to arrive at a conclusion is known as causal research design. So by this example, you have some idea that what is the difference between exploratory research design, descriptive design, and causal design. Now we are coming to the detail. So I mentioned some of the basic points in this slide. So the point of difference, and on the 5 point of difference, we can differentiate between exploratory, descriptive, and causal research design. Now the first point is that what is the status of the problem? So when you are conducting the exploratory research design, the problem is not clear. What is the problem? In our example, what is the problem? That why the person was killed, who killed the person, right? How the person was killed. So these problems are not clear. These problems are clear at the end of exploratory design, right? So initially, the problem is not clear. Now, at the end of the exploratory research design, the problem is clear. So I write here outcome. So what is the outcome of exploratory research design? Clearly define the problem. शुरू में तो आपको सिर्फ एक फोन आया था कि भाई कोई मर गया, है ना? Initially, just know that somebody was murdered. So problem is not clear initially, but at the end, now the problem is clear. Now with the clearly defined problem, you start your descriptive research design and also causal research design. So these are two different things. Now, what is your focus? The focus on exploratory research design is to collection of information as much as possible from different possible sources. In descriptive research design, your focus is on collection of the evidence. Here we are collecting the information. Here we are collecting the evidence. Evidence means data and statistical test. Collection of evidence to arrive at a conclusion. In causal, you are conducting the experiment to arrive at a conclusion. Now, the another point of difference is hypothesis. Because exploratory research design problem is not clear, so hypotheses are not possible to frame. You cannot frame the hypothesis for a exploratory research design. Hypothesis बन ही नहीं सकती इसमें. Hypothesis is not possible in exploratory research design. Here, but in these two, hypotheses are compulsory. Hypotheses are compulsory in descriptive design and causal research design. Then technique used. Technique means which technique you are collecting to collect the information. Answer is by conducting a focus group, interviews, qualitative research, observation method. So these are some of the few methods of collecting the information as much as possible. In descriptive, you conduct a survey or collect the time series or panel data from the secondary sources. In causal research design, you conduct some experiments and collect the data. Now, what is the outcome? Outcome is that clearly defined problem. Conclusion as a result of hypothesis testing and conclusion as a result of experiment. Now, I'm relating my example with a PhD scholar. The investigator got the news that somebody was murdered. At the same time, a scholar came to know that he got the admission in PhD. Both are the same thing. And if somebody is writing a paper, want to write a paper, so the situation is exactly same that I have to publish a paper in this year. So all the three scenarios are exactly same. Now the police officer starts collecting the data from different sources. Now PhD scholar has to decide the topic of the PhD. So he start collecting information about the topic. So which topic I should do my PhD. Similarly, the person who want to publish a research paper, he starts searching for a good topic to write a paper. And now the question is that how the data collection processes exist. So from the point of view of research scholar, he meet different professors, he meet different industry experts, he meet some consultant, he starts reading the literature review, he start doing literature review, he starts reading the magazines. So all these activities are performed by a research scholar to collect the information as much as possible to select the right topic for the PhD. So during the coursework of the PhD, the scholar asked many people that which topic is the good topic for me. So he is in exploratory stage. Similarly, anybody who want to publish a paper, he want to ask different people that on which topic I should write so that it is published in a good journal. So all are collecting the information as much as possible from different sources to arrive at a well-defined problem. All of them are in exploratory research design. Now, at the end of exploratory research design, the police officer know the problem. So problem is that this person, Mr. X, was murdered at this location at this time, and we have to find out who killed him, like that. Similarly, at the end of the coursework, the research scholar is ready with the synopsis. And in the synopsis, he mentioned the research problem, research objectives, and research questions, research gap also. So this is the end of the exploratory research. So synopsis preparation or prepared synopsis is the end of exploratory research for a scholar. Similarly, the finding out a good topic for publication is the end of a exploratory research by a researcher. So now after that, so once problem is clear, the descriptive research design starts. So at this stage, now the data collection starts. From police officer point of view, he want to collect the evidence so that he can prove who is the killer. Evidence. Similarly, the researcher, research scholar, they start collecting the data. He decide the sample design. He decide the data collection process. He designed the source of. He find out the source of data, and he conducted a survey. He conducted a pilot survey. He conducted a main survey, and collected the data. Applied the statistical test to arrive at a conclusion of the hypothesis testing. So this process is called descriptive research design for a research scholar. And similarly, the same process is with the researcher who want to write a paper. In case of causal research design, causal research design is very famous in psychology, medical science, health science, pharmaceutical, because they are not conducting a survey, they are conducting the experiment. You may heard that the medical student conducted an experiment on the rats, rabbits and all. क्योंकि जो ह्यूमन बीइंग नहीं मिलते हैं शुरू में तो वो चूहों पे रैबिट्स पे और इन सब पे एक्सपेरिमेंट करते हैं सो the medical science, health science, psychology, and the pharmaceutical. So these are the areas where surveys are not conducted. They are conducting the experiment to find out whether this drug is better, this treatment is better than other or not. Psychology people test whether this treatment is better than the earlier treatment or not. So the causal research design is based on the experiments. So the three are the main different focus. So I hope you understand what is the focus of the different research designs. Hypothesis clear. A technique used. Now we collect the data in exploratory with the help of focus group interview, qualitative research observation, survey. I think this is clear. And outcome is the clearly defined problem, conclusion as a result of hypothesis testing, and conclusion as a result of experimentation. Now, after understanding this, now we are going to discuss specifically that what are these designs. Now, exploratory research. So, because we are talking in the context of research scholars, so what type of data and the procedure of collecting the data? So, what are the different options they have? So, when a scholar got the admission in PhD, immediately the exploratory research starts. So, what he can do, he can discuss with the seniors, juniors, seniors, or those who are already doing PhD. So, a scholar सबसे पहले क्या करता है? So, any scholar first starts discussing with the classmates, with the seniors, in groups or in interviews. So, he also take the interview means discussion with experts, discussion with the guide, discussion with the different professors, discussion with the industry people, or he also collects some secondary sources, find out some secondary sources where he got the information. And sometimes The small surveys are conducted by research scholar. Then pilot studies is also a part of the exploratory research design. Then the scholar do bibliometric analysis. So he identifies some basic topic and he conducts the bibliometric analysis to find out that who is the author, who is the document, which are the famous document, which are the journals. So these are the all process of data collection, information collection. Then sometimes the scholar also do systematic literature review. All these are the part of exploratory research. All these studies are not started with hypothesis or a clearly defined problem. You are in the search of finding out the problem. Even in systematic literature review, you are having some questions to explore. Then you discuss the with experts, like there are different type of experts, industry experts, academic experts. Your guide is a academic expert. So you discuss with your guide, professor, teacher, जिसको भी आप जानते हो, anybody who, right, who is known to you. You will discuss with them that which topic I should select for my PhD, or what should be the objectives, what should be the hypothesis. So you are exploring each and everything. So magazines, and sometimes magazines and newspapers gives you the idea that on which you can start your PhD. So these are the different options you have to arrive at the synopsis बनाने से पहले. Before developing the synopsis, you have to conduct all these things. Otherwise, you will not find out a good research topic. Now, the problem is that if the scholar is not conducting all these things, then the chances are very high that you end up with selecting a wrong problem. Right. So exploratory research is very important to arrive at a right research problem. I have seen many cases that most of these scholars are doing PhD on a obsolete topic. Obsolete means a Gaya Gujra topic. The topic was 23 years old, 25 years old, 20 years old, but they are still doing PhD on that topic. I have seen people doing PhD in financial inclusion. Nowadays, there is no financial inclusion. It is digitized inclusion nowadays. But people are doing still PhD on financial inclusion. Similarly, customer relationship management. This topic came in 1995, 96. And after that, this topic is already dead, but people are also doing PhD in CRM. Now we are having CRM के बाद social CRM आ गया, social media CRM, उसके बाद AI CRM आ गया, but now people are doing still PhD on CRM. So there are so many problems the scholars have in selecting the right research problem. And because they are not conducting all these things to arrive at a right research problem. So this is my experience. So I hope you understand what is the importance of exploratory research in the PhD. So what actually we do in exploratory research design? This is the initial research conducted to clarify and define the nature of the problem. Does not provide conclusive evidence. If you cannot conclude anything as a result of exploratory research. Only the problem is clear. So subsequent research is expected after the exploratory research. And the main objective of exploratory research is to collect the information as much as possible from the all possible sources. Then you have to find out the best research problem. And not in the case of research, in any case of research, this process saves you to take wrong decision. So your decision making will be very good if you conduct a preliminary survey or exploratory survey before taking any of the decision. So this is called exploratory research design. And in PhD, 90% of the PhD should not be conducted on exploratory research design. If anybody is mentioned exploratory research design, it means either he is conducting a qualitative research, otherwise it is wrong. So you can write exploratory research design only if you are conducting qualitative research, otherwise this word should not come in the thesis. So exploratory research design synopsis submit करने से पहले होता है. Now we are coming to the descriptive research design. Now you have all the information, research problem, hypothesis, research gap, each and everything you know. So after that, it starts. So it started with clearly defined problem, objective, and hypothesis. So when you submit your synopsis, you already have clearly defined gap, problem, and objectives and hypothesis. Now, what is your duty? Responsibility. Now, your focus should be to collect the data of many variables for hypothesis testing. आपने hypothesis तो बना ली है. Now, what you do? You collect the data to test the hypothesis. You collect the data. In other cases, we call it evidence. आपको अपनी hypothesis को prove करने के लिए क्या चाहिए? सबूत, evidence. So you have to collect the data to prove the hypothesis. In research, you apply the most suitable statistical test for hypothesis testing, and p-value, whatever with the p-value come, it is the evidence. So from the result of the statistical test, you arrive at a conclusion, and your conclusion must be new so that you can add value to the existing literature. So this is the mindset. This is the process of descriptive research design. So descriptive research design is a process of collecting the evidence to prove the hypothesis. Simple. Now, in books, it is mentioned that descriptive research design is a research method you should try and determine. So their language is very complicated, but in simple language, what is the research design? Descriptive design to prove the hypothesis, collect the evidence from the data, apply a statistical test, and arrive at a conclusion. That's it. Now, in the main features of descriptive research design is you must have a well-defined research gap. And in the first day, we understand that the research gap are of different types. It may be a information gap, it may be a knowledge gap, it may be a methodology gap, it may be a population gap. So there are different type of gaps. So you must define. Actually, the research gap must be defined at synopsis stage. Then you have well-defined research problem and objectives, framed hypothesis. Without hypothesis, you know that PhD cannot be completed. A statistical test to be applied. You must know on the day one that what is my hypothesis, how I will prove it, with the help of which test I should prove it, and which type of data is collected to support the hypothesis. And on the basis of the hypothesis testing, you draw your conclusion and explain the outcome or the implication of your research. So all these stages comes in the process of descriptive research design. So your mindset should be that how to prove my proposed hypothesis with the help of data and statistical tests. So this is the objective of descriptive research design. Now the third type of research design is causal research design. In causal research design, basically you are conducting the experiment to prove whether the hypothesis is accepted or rejected. So before explaining this, I'm going to explain one of the experiments. Now, with the help of that, we will discuss further. So, in this example, this is a real experiment. So, one of the psychologists, he divide the employees of a company in two groups. Let me also write on this slide. So, there are two groups. This is group number one, and this is group number two. So, these employees are placed in different locations so that they cannot communicate each other. So, the employees in group number one, they show negative type of movies to the employees. Negative movies, matlab, the movies of war, the movies of revenge, right? So fight, like punishment. So these are the negative movies. So these employees only watch negative movies throughout the whole day. On the other side, the second set of employees, they were shown positive movies. Positive movies means fairy tales and love and friendship. So these are a positive side. The achievement based movies. Now, after a week, so in few initial days, the employees watch only negative movies. This employees watch only positive movies. After that, after the stage one, in stage two, the employees were assigned to perform some task, and the tasks are designed in such a way that the task can be performed individually or task can be performed in groups. दोनों तरह के टास्क उनको दिए, ऐसे टास्क दिए गए दोनों एम्प्लॉयज को. Both set of employees were given task, and the nature of the task was that they can complete individually as well as in groups. So it was found that the groups, the employees who watched negative movies, they performed majority of the tasks in groups. And the employees who watched the positive movies, they most of the tasks they performed as an individual. So after this concept, they conclude that fear is the reason for group dynamics. So after that, the theory comes, theory of group dynamics. So the experimenters say that the researcher concludes that the main reason of group formation is negative sentiment. जहां पे डर होता है और गुस्सा होता है, so the people come together easily and respond similar. Now you can see in Bangladesh what is going on. Suddenly all these students comes together, and because of the fear. So group formation, behind the group formation, the main reason is fear. And anywhere where there is no politics, there is no fear, then everybody individually perform better. So all the companies, good companies, they avoid negative sentiment, they avoid politics, they avoid, right, negative feelings, so that everybody can perform better in the company. So we got a very good theory after this experiment. Similarly, there are so many experiments conducted by the researchers. and you may know the Pavlov experiment, classical learning, operant learning, like that. So all of you have learned these experiments. So now we are talking about the experiment. In the experiment, in our example, there are two groups, and both the groups are experimental groups. And we want to find out whether there is a impact of emotions on the group formation or not. So what is the reason that we want to know that, researchers want to know that, what is the impact of emotions on the group formation? So in this case, the cause is the emotions and the effect is group formation. So we can say group formation depends upon the emotions. जो जितना बड़ा डरपोक होता है वो ग्रुप में रहता है. So like that. So now you can understand the cause and effect relationship. So we are establishing the relationship between the cause and the effect. So this experimentation is very common, I said, in health science, psychology, medical, pharma, because they are conducting the experiment. Now, in most of the cases, the treatment or the drug is the independent variable, and they want to find out its impact on improvement. And improvement is measured through different variables. So these are the dependent variable which depends upon the treatment or drug. So this is called causal research design. And this design also is very common in chemical engineering, mechanical engineering. So in some areas, these experiments are very important. Even in computer science, electronics, so they're not conducting a survey, they are doing only experiment. So now we are moving to the causal research design. First of all, I will explain you the basics of that. So first of all, we have to design the groups in experimental designs. Normally, we have two type of groups: experimental groups on which we are doing experiment, or control group which are only keep to compare. कंट्रोल ग्रुप पे आप कुछ नहीं करते, सिर्फ उनसे कंपेयर करते हो. सो कंट्रोल ग्रुप्स आर decided for comparison. Experimental group are those on which you are conducting the experiment so that the result can be compared with the control group. तो जिन लोगों पे एक्सपेरिमेंट होगा एक्सपेरिमेंट ग्रुप, और जिनको कंपैरिजन के लिए रखा जाएगा दैट इज कंपैरिजन. इन मेडिकल साइंस one group is given toffee or glucose, and the other experimental group you are providing the medicine. दोनों देखने में एक जैसी लगती हैं, but in one there is a medicine, in other there is a glucose, and so that the those people who are in control group, they have a feeling that medicine is given to us. Similarly, in experimental research, the experimental groups, they also know that medicine is given to us, but they don't know whether it is a drug with drug or not. So we are having, in my example, negative emotions and positive emotions both are experimental group, because we want to compare the different experiment. So there are two type of groups in experiments: experiment and control. We are using these symbols in experimental research. O means what you are going to measure. आपको measurement क्या करना है? So suppose you are going to measure the blood pressure, performance, group formation. So what you are going to measure? So anything which you are going to measure, the variables which you are going to measure is represented by O. X matlab what experiment you are conducting, like giving the medicine, like positive movies, negative movies, or teaching the student with smart class, teaching the student with online class, teaching the offline student. So all these are experiments. There are two groups, as I told you, experimental group and control group. Then R and M means R means how you decide the units of the group. मतलब किसको एक्सपेरिमेंट में रखना है, किसको कंट्रोल में रखना है. So how you decide that which person comes in experiment, which comes in control. So that is called random. How you assign. So obviously it is expected that the assignment should be random. So that is represented by the R. Random assignment of the test unit to the experimental group and the control group is known as random assignment. Then last is the M. M is balancing. Balancing means you must be having equal or equivalent group size. Suppose you are having control group and experimental group, so you must have 30, 30 or 29, 31 like that. So the balancing should be there. So M is responsible for representing the balancing part, that both groups can be compared with each other. So these symbols we are representing in experimental designs. O means what variable you are going to measure. Experiment, experimental group, control group, random assignment of the units. The unit matlab, unit may be a rat, unit may be a rabbit, unit may be a human being, unit may be a patient, whatever it be. Student. M is the balancing. So I'm just explaining the basics of experimental design. Now, first, the most important is the experiment. कि experiment क्या होगा? So, what is the experiment? So, providing a drug, providing a glucose experiment. In a student, teaching with case study, teaching with blackboard experiment, teaching with online, offline experiment. Right. Similarly, in health science, teach giving treatment one, giving treatment two, experiment. So, what kind of experiment you are going to perform? You have to find out the experiment. Like one of the scholar, I was discussing with her. So she was doing experiment with PhD scholars. No, no PhD scholars with students. So one set of students are going to the gym, and second set of students are not going to gym. So students are divided of a college are into two categories: a student who are going to gym, a student who are not going to gym. So they conducted two parties. In one party, they invite only those students who are going to gym. In second party, they invite only those students who are not going to gym. And they want to understand what is the food habit, food choice of these students. So they found that the students who are going to gym, they prefer to have healthy food. So from the menu, they select food, fruit juices, fruits. So the student who are going to gym, they are having healthy choice. Similarly, the student who are not going to gym, they are having bad food habits, like they prefer burger, pizza, right? So the conclusion is that the food habit of a person depends upon the exercising habit of a person. So this was the conclusion of that research. So whenever I discussed with the student, with the scholar, so we frame that how we are going to conduct the experiment. Like for example, how you came to know that that person go to gym, that students are regularly going to gym or not. So they say that okay, we will take attendance that whether they are going to gym or not. So like that. So you have to design the complete experiment with the research. So there are so many things which you have to note down. that how much time the person is spending in the gym, like that. So experiments has to design very carefully. And then what you going to measure? That, for example, when you invite a student to the party, you have to note down that which student eat what items, and you should offer the same food product to both the students, right? So now you have to find out that how many pizzas are consumed, how many burgers are consumed, how many fruit juices are consumed. So you take track. So conducting the experiment is the most crucial part of the experiment design, and it should be conducted in a very controlled environment, and very keeping so many precautions. So we are going to discuss that. So there are many issues which comes in the experimental design, like manipulation of the independent variable. So what are the different independent variable? Here the independent variable is going to the gym. Selection and measurement of the dependent variable. So what is the dependent variable? How you measure the food habits? So that is also a selection and measurement of the dependent variable is an issue. Selection and assignment of the test units. अब इसमें क्या करते हैं कि अगर हम मोटे लोगों को जिम भेजते हैं, पतले लोगों को नहीं भेजते, तो प्रॉब्लम थी. So we have to assign randomly that both kind of person comes in both groups. Control over extraneous variable. Extraneous variable is the main problem in experimental design. This is the main problem. Extraneous variables are those variables which can disturb your food habits. Oh, sorry, dependent variable. Extraneous variables are those variables which can have an impact on outcome variable. So extraneous variable, or I call them disturbance variable. ये वो वेरिएबल हैं जो डिस्टरबेंस पैदा करते हैं. So extraneous variables are known as disturbing variables, disturbance variables. So we have to identify these disturbance variables very, very carefully. Similarly, the selection of the independent variable and dependent variable, that what you measure initially, what you measure as an outcome, what is the experiment. Experiment is normally the independent variable because it is having the impact on the outcome. So, and because in this case you are having control matlab, if suppose you are giving drug, how much quantity you have to decide to provide to the patient. So control, you have entire control on the quantity measurement of the independent variable. Dependent variable, which exactly what you are going to measure. So that is dependent variable. Test unit, matlab, who are the people participating in the experiment. It may be a human being, it may be a machine, because in computer science, the people are conducting the impact of software on the performance. So test unit may be the machines. So test unit may be, most of the cases, it is human being. In social science, they are human beings, or the rats, rabbits, and all. So all these are the test unit. So decision of the test unit. And here there's a very important concept called blinding. Single blinding, double blinding, triple blind, single blind. So what is the meaning of that? Let me explain. Are you want to convey the information to the test unit? क्या आप अपने टेस्ट यूनिट्स को बताओगे कि हम आप एक्सपेरिमेंट कर रहे हैं, कौन सा एक्सपेरिमेंट कर रहे हैं? Suppose you are sharing the information with the test unit, it means no blending. Single blending means you know each and everything about the experiment, but the test unit are not aware about that. Because anybody who is getting the medicine don't know that what is in the medicine. So this is called single blind. Double blind means when the anybody who is doing the experiment and the test units are not aware. So both are not aware. that what kind of experiment is going on, because the experiment is done by the top management. They decide who will conduct the experiment, they will decide who are the units, but both are not aware that what kind of experiment it is. It is called double blind. In triple blind, even test unit don't aware, the uh, the person who are conducting the experiment is not aware, the management itself is not aware that what kind of experiment it is, because it is conducted by somebody other company or some other person. So three level are totally unknown that what kind of experimentation is going on. So that is called blind. So you have to keep in this mind whether your experiment is single blind, double blind. Although in PhD scholar, in PhD thesis, it is mostly single blind, because you are completely aware about the experiment and the test unit are not aware. So it is a single blind most of the cases. So now the problem is that what kind of problem we can have in the experiments. Two type of problems, constant error and random error. Constant error मतलब एक error जो है वो शुरू से चलती हुई आ रही है. So the error is from the start to the end. It is constant. And random error means suddenly it comes in between. I'm giving you one example. If you make wrong selection of the units, the error will be continuous in the result also. आपने अगर सही लोगों का चुनाव नहीं किया, if you don't select the right people in the right group, or you don't do random selection, the mistakes can be carried forward to the conclusion. Constant error. Random error means suppose you are conducting an experiment, in between somebody left the experiment and they are not following the rules. Or just say suppose you are working with a laptop and the electricity gone, voltage fluctuations which are not predictable. So these are called random errors. आप कोई एक्सपेरिमेंट कर रहे हैं, लाइट चली गई, आप कोई एक्सपेरिमेंट कर रहे हैं, वोल्टेज फ्लक्चुएशन हो गया, आप कोई एक्सपेरिमेंट कर रहे हैं, किसी की डेथ हो गई, यू आर डूइंग एक्सपेरिमेंट एंड सम न्यू गाइडलाइंस कम्स. So these are called random experiments, random errors. Okay. So now the issue is what is extraneous variable. So I'm just stopping here, and because from here I will continue in the next session. In the next session, I will explain so many things like what is all these things like one-shot design, two-shot design, random design, pretest, Solomon group, and there are some advanced designs, experimental designs, like completely randomized block design. So this part I will cover in the next session because it is a huge topic. And these designs are very important for those who are conducting the experiments. So we will continue this session in the next. So thank you very much for patience listening. Now I'm coming to the discussion.